horse drifted alarmingly in the betting was, Fencer in the morning continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Burns.
The ground is soft.
It's heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
A huge warm welcome to the Bar Stewards Inquiry Spooky Halloween edition. The racing this weekend that's taken place, it'll spook many of you out, no doubt. If you're into your national hunt racing, it's good. But if you're into your flat racing like us, it's been an absolute. Anyway, this show is sponsored. We've actually got a sponsor for this, just for this show. SiblingDistillery.com. Sibling Gin. It's based in Cheltenham, and they've had the good grace to send me a bottle of Sibling Original, bottle up my way. Nothing for you, lads, Chris and John. Nothing for you at the moment.
You're doing a Neville Ender there, giving us now.
Yeah. So they're based in Cheltenham, so you know what to do, folks. If you got your Christmas list, take a look at their website, SiblingDistillery.com. And as we know, chaps, there's nothing wrong with drinking and betting. And for people horrified at that statement and saying that is absolutely outrageous, how can you drink and bet? Well, look at the old Aussies. They have the TABs in the pubs, the betting. And right, so which is the best system then, chaps? Because I looked on Saturday morning and my eyes nearly popped out at like 7 a.m. I actually got up for the Golden Eagle Stakes, which 6:45 at Rosehill, a Sydney track. I've actually been there. It's a lovely track. The incredible thing was the prize money. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. It's a race. I don't pay much attention to Australian racing, but listen to this, John, Chris. Listen to this. £2.8 million for the winner, £1 million for second, 537,000 for third, 268,000 for fourth, 134,000 for fifth, 94,000 for sixth, 64,000 for seventh, eighth, 953,000, 10th 40,000, 11th 16,000, and so on and so on and so on. It pays prize money out to every runner. Even the last horse gets 5,000 quid.
I tax Sadik will be plotting one up for that.
Right. So this is our first sort of subject and port of call, right? Because I've noticed a lot of UK horses heading across to Australia. Waterville this week, for example, 410,000 straight to Chris Waller, and obviously will be targeted at future Melbourne Cups and Steyn Cups out in Australia. Now, when people say, "Yeah, but Australia's got good prize money because it's all tote," well, it's not all tote, is it? Because you can bet on Betfair in Australia. Yeah. There's on-course bookmakers in Australia, and they've obviously got the TABs, the tote, if you like. So these people have got it right, haven't they? The people that run Australian racing, if you're offering money like that, they've got it spot on. And so it's not all dependent on a tote-based system, is it? Because clearly, if you can go to the tracks and bet with the books, you can bet online with Betfair, and you can play the tab corps in the pubs. John, I'm coming to you on this. Is this just different cultures, or is this something that, because we've gone down a sort of a nanny state approach with regards to betting, it's a dirty word in the UK. Is that the problem? Moreover, that you can't mix drinking with betting.
I think it's an example of no bullshit Aussies, to be honest. They do what's best for the sport. The politicians rock along with it because they want the sport to thrive, and they don't want to be interfering and bailing it out or whatever, and everybody's a winner. I can't fault the Australian approach. I think it's fantastic. I just wish we had a few more politicians like they've got over there, and I certainly wish the game was run over here by a similar calibre of people that run it over there.
Well, it seems like, Chris, I agree, John. It seems like from the past, Chris, that we've come to Australians to help run our sport. We've employed Australian people to come over here and help with the running of our sport, which seems an impossible task. And obviously, the Kieran Fallon trial, for example, years ago, it was obviously an Australian sort of steward, if you like, that came across to offer the case against Fallon, which obviously
the thing is though, Lee, we've gotten Australians involved in things that they're not necessarily going to know about, such as the mechanics of race riding over here.
Yeah.
And when it's a completely different style, different topography on the tracks, all such as that. And
yes,
what we should have get them involved is the mechanics of the running of the sport.
Yeah, I don't think they've got the same aversion, and I don't know, but it doesn't seem they've got the same aversion to gambling over there as they have here, as evidenced by the betting terminals in places of drink. And I think they take the view as well, we're all grown ups, if you want to get pissed and have a bet, that's your lookout. And I don't think they have that kind of sort of nannying culture over there that we seem to be kind of swept up in.
Yeah, I mean, when I was over there, it obviously gets quite hot at certain parts, and it's nice to just pop into a pub, sink a cold one, and then when you've literally got like terminals right there at the bar, and they've got the racing on in the bar, and you can just stick $20 and just have a bit of fun, and I've no doubt a lot of people do. Yeah. But that's the thing, we've obviously done this on many shows before with regards to safer gambling, but this country in particular seems to have gone down the victimhood route, which. Yeah. And that's where we're falling down, because we can't. How can you grow a sport when the victims are crying from the rooftops and either want compensating for the losses because they've done 10 grand in at 3 a.m. on the slots? Instead of calling for just more personal responsibility, but that becomes a leadership problem from the top, whether that's from the top of racing, the top of government, to say no. You've got to take responsibility for your own actions. Yeah. And this is there in the problem. But eye-watering prize money there from Rosehill. I've never seen it. I mean, some listeners will probably correct me and say there's something bigger over there. I've not seen it, but that's ginormous. Not just in terms of the winning purse, but the fact that you get £500,000 for third.
Simcock got a slice, didn't he?
Did he?
He was 5th or 6th with light infantry.
Oh yeah, let's talk about this because I watched this race. I did watch it, right? So like, somebody put a funny post up and said, imagine like getting a horse off Simcock and then sending Jamie Spencer half the way around the world to ride it, drop it out, and finish full of run and never get in there. It's like what we've been seeing for the last 20 years from Jamie.
It's coming back though, isn't it? I think that's why he was riding it. Yeah. It's not stopping out there. He's getting it back for next year.
Right. Yeah. He gave it a lot to do. I've got to admit, from what was not a bad draw either. Stall 6. I mean, if Rosehill's
in trip as well, wasn't he? It wasn't like 7.
Yeah, it was so 7.5 furlongs. Obviously, Rosehill's got a massive sort of sweeping bend. It's a real sort of, you've got quite a run to the bend, but the bend itself is like a really big lot, sort of like Kempton, John.
Yeah.
If you can, like on turf, the old turf track, that's that kind of really long bend. And then it's a nice run to the line. So it's quite a fair track, but he didn't have to give that a lot to do. So there was tweets after the race actually going mad at Spencer, but it was funny. Just that going forwards for British racing, we've got massive problems in that we're going to lose a lot of horse flesh to down under. That's a fact. I'm not necessarily in Dubai as much or America. I would say the biggest threat to our breeding and everything else will come from Asia and Australasia, those kind of areas, because we're just not in the same ballpark. If light infantry can potentially get £500,000 for third place, I know he wasn't third, but I'm just saying if he was third, £500,000 Does the Guineas pay £500,000 for winning? I'm not sure.
I think our administrators will probably think they're all right for the time being, because classic winners, Guineas winners, etc., tend still to be standing in Europe. They'll either go to like Dallon Hall, Juddmonte, or Culmer. And the lower echelons that are getting sold at the minute still probably aren't going to make the tip-top stallions. But it's a very fine balance. We're not far off the tipping point where we could start losing potential stallions, and if we do, we're buggered then.
That's the problem, John, isn't it? You said the powers that be say we're all right for now, but that's the issue. Yeah, it's always a short-term strategy. A couple of years I'll be fucking out the job doing something else. So
exactly, they'd much rather sit on their hands.
Yeah, keep it going for a couple of years, and then it's someone else's problem. It's the lack of a long-term vision and strategy, and we've said that previously.
There are so many horses disappearing down under that are rated in the sort of 95 to 105 bracket, the very bracket that we're short of. And you can tell that with the races this year, John, like with races that just aren't filling, like the Cambridgeshire. There's been many races that just aren't, they can't even attract the top numbers. We used to have consolation races, and that's not happening anymore. And so then the next stage, if it carries on in the numbers that's happening, I mean, the frightening thing is we're probably going to have to start overrating our own horses. Our stock then becomes weaker because maybe then we get carried away, a bit like national hump racing in Britain, where our stock is not as good as the Irish stock. So when one of ours pisses up in a race at Ascot, in a 5-runner race and wins by 27 wickets, it'll get an 171 Racing Post rating, when something of Willie's has had to beat sort of Gordon Elliott, Henry de Bromhead, all the top talent to win all out, but that'll get a lower Racing Post rating or a time form rating than the one that's Nichols that's pissed up, by 27 lengths. And that's been the problem for a while. And, whilst we accept it might be a bit of nuts and hay also, it's certainly an issue where I can see it getting worse and worse. And like Chris rightly says, this is a case of people sitting on their hands and just, I'm, like you say, I'm gone from this job. But it's a sad state of affairs we've got. Okay, John, review of Saturday's racing, which and I'll tell you what we'll do, right? Because
Rampton was all right.
Unless there's anything specific, I would like to touch on the Charlie Hall.
Yeah.
And Bravemansgame's win from Eldorado Allen, Sam Brown, Paint the Dream, obviously. Hoy Senor went by the bite. He was a bit gassy early on. I love it, by the way, how pundits after the race, they'll say things like, well, you could tell Hoy Senor was very gassy early, and you knew he wasn't going to see it out, doing things like that. Right? Why didn't they lay the 5-4 and 6-4 for a lap? I love them type of comments. They talk as if he was never going to win. How did they know that? I hate that, especially when I've backed one. And it's like they'll say after the race when it finishes second or third, well, you could tell that was never going to win, and it's gone like 2-5 in the run.
It's unbelievable. Though. It's the same problem, isn't it? Funny they never ever mention that before the race has run.
Oh no.
It's got every chance to say, well, it was obvious that was going to get kids. Well,
I've got a question for our paddock guru, Norman Adams, actually. Adele Mulrennan said before one of the races on Saturday that she likes to see the veins on a horse's neck stand out. Because then the blood's moving round.
Mm.
Now, I ventured to suggest that if the blood wasn't moving down, the horse would be laid down and not breathing. I was just wondering if Norman Adams looks for a veiny neck.
It's a fair point, well made. Anyway, back to Charlie Hall Chase then. So Bravemansgame obviously is touted as a King George prospect from Paul Nicholls.
Yeah, I don't think he's any more of a King George prospect than he was before the race.
I mean, this is my take of the race. I thought things went right for him. I think he got a nice lead. Something took a hoist and you're on early paint the dream. Kind of that was kind of a nice move because it kind of put a hoist on your off, I think, a little bit. And Bravemansgame just jumped well, which he does. He's a fantastic athlete, makes a great shape at his fences. What worried me was the running. With the fact, so everything had gone right. You couldn't have gone any better. If you back Bravemansgame pre-off, you were sat with it resting on the thigh throughout the race. And literally over the last, I'm thinking, right, he's going to go and win 10. He'll just squeeze a bit, and then he'll just quicken on nicely after the last. There was absolutely zero left. Anyone watches that, he's not found. In fact, Eldorado Allen for me blew up about 3 out because basically they quickened it up like they do. And they were in a real searing pace over the third last. Eldorado Allen just couldn't go with them. He looked like he was going to get beat by 20. Yeah. And that to me is when they blow up, and that's when they sort of half need it. And then he got his second wind coming to the last and stayed on again. And I was one of the few probably when people were saying, "Oh, Bravemansgame, wow." Yes, the jumping was good. Everything was good. But if you're beating Eldorado Allen in receipt of £3 by 3.5 lengths, doing everything right, then I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're giving Eldorado Allen anywhere near his official rating, he's done nothing to enhance, has he, Bravemansgame? No,
like you said, John, it's probably it is what it is. I think you're looking at 160. Late.
I'm not entirely convinced he's a 3-miler.
Probably not, because the way he goes, he wasn't extending at the line, and I know people say that's his first run of the season. He probably wasn't cherry ripe, and I concede to that also at first after a wind up. But let's be right here. He's done everything right. What happens if he'd have hit 2 or 3? He'd have got beat. So that's the difference. I know people say, well, he didn't. I know, but we know horses do. That's the whole part of it. You don't matter how good you are, you will eventually you're going to hit 1 or 2, maybe 3 fences during a race. That's how it is. So that as an analyst, you've got to say, well, that's him all in. That's it. So and another thing that put me off with Paul Nicholls' comments when he said after the race, he says, we learned after entry that going round the inside, he doesn't like it. He doesn't like being tightened up. So we purposely stayed out wide. Well, you don't want to be going round wide round Kempton, Paul. You're winning nothing. Look at the past winners of the King George. They're like rats on a rail. He's like, just jump well out in front and away you go. Desert Orchid proved that. And if you have the wide trip at Kempton and sit 3 or 4 wide, you winning no King George. So yeah, bring it on. I'm hoping to see that as a probably a short price in the King George, maybe, because I think I'd be confident in taking it on.
I don't think there'll be much sleep lost across the water.
No, absolutely not. The Irish must be beaming, I think, because I like Hoysenor, he seems a type that's either all or nothing. Like he's talented. You've seen that, but he's had too many blobs now, hasn't he? Like
to me, it's a yard that's right for producing horses that have blobs.
Yeah.
I mean, with the best will in the world. I mean, I know she won a share of races with that horse, but I would never have the confidence to go in hard and heavy on one of hers.
No, I know what you mean. But then again, like national racing in a way is different to flat in that you'll have targets on the flat, but you're not going to leave one short in guineas that's a 7-2 poke. You train them probably in different ways. Like you probably go hard on them, then rough them off for a bit, then bring them back to a boiling point for say York or targets. But in national hunt terms, I always think some trainers aren't that arsed, you know, in these sort of trial races. They'll just leave them really fat. And this is probably sometimes why I do struggle. But I mean, like the Mare's Hurdle, Molly Ollie's Wishes, what an SP that was. It was like 3.2 on the exchange, very weak, obviously well below form. They obviously knew it needed the run because it made hard work of beating Martello Skyjon.
Did we have a paddock note on Hoising yet, by the way?
I've not seen a paddock note from Norm at the moment, no. He did after time meet Hall Lane in the first.
Right.
After time, not pre-off.
Yeah. One,
Norm he's a disgrace of a man, awful man. You know, it really is. I mean, imagine that you've done your spuds, your bollocks. You know, absolutely, you've emptied your pockets out on Joe the Dancer, and by the way, you probably spent it before as they turn in for home, and then you see. I mean, John, even your not off one beat it, William E. York.
I know. Unbelievable.
So the not off one beats mine. So Joe the Dancer broke everyone's hearts in the first, and then Norman sends me a paddock text. Well, no, he gave me a voice file that he'd sent out to his subscribers, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, saying Hall Lane's a lovely type and could surprise a lot of people. And he's dining off that now for 6 weeks. A disgrace of a man, really. Yeah, don't get involved with him. He's like Kennedy. I mean, come on, Ken's another disgrace.
A lovely type. Yeah.
Oh no! Hang on, we're going too far. We're gonna upset Dominique Hamlin now, Chris. We've got to. We do not want the wrath of Dominique ever on this show. Right. Carrying on then. So, John, did you see anything else on Saturday that took your eye? Because sometimes I'd rather listen to your sort of paddock stuff and anything you've seen on flat really at Newmarket Saturday that caught your eye.
I thought the maidens were very average. The one I did like on Saturday was Ottoman Flight.
Yeah, that's off to Dubai now, I think.
I'm a bit concerned that they'll run the knackers off him in Maidan or wherever, you know. I think if they came back next year with a fresh horse, I think he could be pretty serious, like Prince of Wales type horse, you know. I think it was hard not to give him the high 110s on Saturday.
Interesting.
He looks like a horse going places. Maybe possibly just better with the goose in the ground, but he's a good sort. He moves fairly well. I don't think quicker ground than inconvenience him all that much, but he's scorpion. He's got the sort of pedigree that would suggest he'd go on, you know. But I hope they don't over-race him during the winter.
Yeah, you could see him running 3 times, say at Maidan, and then
that'd be my worry with him.
Yeah. The Montrose Filly Stakes, Mick Windmill gave everyone a parting gift when landing.
Yeah, fuck off after that, can't you?
I mean, what a career! You know, England footballer. He were better than Mick Quinn. And he were better training than Mick Quinn. And he's
Franny Lay. Was he better than Franny Lay?
What, footballer?
Yeah.
No, I'd say no, not footballer.
Well, he wasn't a better diver than Franny Lay. Franny Lay had the dives off to perfection, didn't he?
Yeah. No, I'm full of admiration for Mick Windmill over the years. Yeah, I think what's done it for him is the loss of Jabra Abdullah.
Yeah.
I think that's probably knocked his duck off. That was the one owner that was potentially giving him some decent ammo, and I don't know whether Jabra Abdullah's cutting him down on. I think he's gone over to France a bit more as well. Abdullah, I think he's got pissed off with the prize winner.
Quite a lot with Kevin Ryan and the kilt, didn't they, these days?
Yeah, and he's let. I mean, Mick Windmill's was it Queen's Logic?
Yeah. Young's in.
Yeah. I mean,
fucking Kilt's never going to trim 3 acronyms up for him, is he?
I'll tell you what. That's a good point, and this is why sometimes some people take piss out of Shannon in terms of strike rate, and you know he's had a lot of shit. But when you consider it, he's mostly training homebreds like from 60s Icon, and You know, like a lot. He's not had the tackle that he probably once had like a few years ago. So yeah, it's sad to see in a way. You know, I think we look back fondly on it.
I'd have him on a par with Anne and Joni.
Yeah, I think for what's gone through his hands in terms of horse flesh and breeding, I would agree with that. I think Mixon. I mean, I don't think he's been the best at placing them, to be honest. Some of them anyway. But I think that's a problem with many trainers. But it certainly was an arrow to the heart. Jack Veach, who's on this show next week for the Breeders' Cup preview, he back keep in touch of Wells, so he was sick, and obviously I was double sick because I was on Dream of Love, and that pulled harder than Wayne Lineker, John. Yeah, it was absolutely.
I thought second and third were keen enough, actually. I just thought Chris Hayes did a slightly better job than the Doyle, certainly keeping in touch. I thought Chris Hayes was possibly a tad overconfident on keeping in touch. Waiting. I think if he kicked a bit sooner, he might have actually won that. Yeah,
no, fair point. So fair point. So that was a Montrose. I think that's good. I think that's quite a nice race. I like some of them in there. I think they'll do well next year. Nothing else from me on the review. So we'll move on. So basically, there was a reaction earlier this week to Adam McCormck, who is probably more. If you follow owners, he used to have the Vac Pouch moniker as the owner, and there was apparently a lot of bad reaction to the failed gamble of Adam McCormck, how bent it was, this is embarrassing and all this lot, you know, this is terrible, embarrassing, you know, it's like he's landed these all with these coconuts and they're into short prices, and I mean, Chris, what's your feeling on things like this? It's fair game, and it landing gambles in this game. I mean, do you think Adam McCormack's unfairly targeted?
Totally. I mean, he doesn't. For those ones that we know about, I mean, he doesn't conceal the ownership. I mean, he's in his fucking name, either his company name or his own name. You know, it's not as if he's sort of, you know, getting someone to train them, you know, separately, then sticking him into Helen Nelms or somewhere like that to have it. Yeah, which is exactly what I'll be fucking doing. I'd avoid all punting trainers and all that sort of shit. I'll be sticking them with people you've never heard of. But he doesn't seek to conceal his involvement in the horses. People know in the main what trainers he tends to use: Kirby, Coulthard, a couple of others. So, you know, what's the problem? You know that's what he's going to do, and that's how he pays the bills. So good luck to him, I'd say.
Yeah, John?
Agree with all of that.
Yeah, look. I mean, it's dirty, but I mean, this is what the game is. It's literally everyone's looking for an edge, and the thing is, the punters that complain, you could argue that, well, you're just pissed off because you weren't involved in it, or you didn't get on at the prices, but then you could also argue on the other side of the coin, well, is this good for people trying to read a form book, and you know, but as a rule,
that's not the point, is it, Lee? You've made the point before. You know, when you see, for instance, you know, the kitchen fitter from Ireland, and you see a horse of his that sort of been smashed up, and it's 5-2, and it's shortening. You know, people say, "Oh, that's no value." That's fucking tremendous value, because using his MO, he's probably got 10 stone in hands, and probably 5 on terrific value. So you kind of know where you are with those sort of, you know, where you have a problem is where the ownership is concealed by using surrogate trainers and surrogate owners, etc. But Adam McCormck, I mean, his name's on the race card, so you know he's going to have a go at some point. You just got to pick the right time, haven't you?
Yeah, I can't, like you say, I did say the other week on the show, like, dirty Alan Rogers. I mean, the thing is, I don't know. The thing is, he's playing the game, so that's the game you play. But so what I'd do is, if I was like games master, in other words, handicapper, I'd just make it a little bit harder for Alan Rogers to keep doing it. So, but then the problem is when you do that as a handicapper and you're not handicapping on the actual form and everything else, is they'll do any, like you say, they'll do things then to conceal the names.
Yeah. which is what I'd do. I wouldn't worry.
Well, yeah. I mean, for example, it's interesting because tomorrow there's a race at Kempton, 120 on Monday, and Kevin Frost, I think he's a trainer to keep an eye on. I've heard one or two shrewd judges mumbling behind the scenes that he's getting a few horses from the Emerald Isle, and Matthew Smith has sent one to him. Good old Matthew Smith. I actually likes Matthew Smith.
Yes.
That goes to him, and it runs in the 120 at Kempton tomorrow. So you know what's afoot, and it runs in the Kevin Frost Racing Club. You know, with all the nice members, with Doris and Sid.
Lovely
breakfast
and had a carrot for fucking tea.
Yeah, they've passed it on the neck and given it a polo, and they've come here today, and it's the first day's racing. What a racing club it is! Yeah, that one. So tomorrow, Kevin Frost has one from Matthew Smith, so that's going to be interesting.
Now, haven't you? They don't know what to do if they're listening.
Well, what do they do now? He said it on the pod. They'll all be looking. They'll be having the 20s overnight, and it has to be out of the back of the telly. But yeah, this is it. So there's no real solution really. I'd just say that, look, if you're having it off, fair play. It's a difficult game to win on anyway, and you've seen the attitude of bookmakers. I've no sympathy for bookmakers anymore. I used to think if I were a book, I'd be struggling to accept people like this just taking my pants down all the time. But then, having seen the practice of bookmakers recently, then I don't really care. Yeah, that's it. So anyway, so question now then. So chats, this is what I thought of. And Betfair's been going since sort of post 2001, and obviously in the early glory days, everyone was helping themselves to the banquet. It was like one of those sperm whales sat there in the middle of the ocean on its dying legs as all the sharks came in and at the underbelly of it. So a question for you now: what would you get up to, right, if you were, say? So I'm going to list them: jockey, trainer, owner, judge, steward, Betfair account watcher. Well, I'll tell you what I'd do if I were a jockey, right? This is the ultimate stroke I'd pull, right? When I don't think no one would suspect. I would do the old, if I rode a 4 to 6 chance or something like that I knew were an absolute good thing, and it was for some old deer, and it wasn't somebody that kicked my face in after, make sure that a weight would fall out of the weight cloth, right? So that then you could win the race. So you do the rounds pre-play at 4 to 6, right? Yeah. And then you make sure you're wiping up all the 101 and the 1.1. Yeah. And then you're weighing £3 light.
Yeah, slaughter it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
That'd be my edge. I mean, have you thought what any of you two would like to do as a jockey back in the day?
Gosh, I suppose nothing really different to what 90% of them do. I'd have my punters, I'd have my people sticking in odds to fucking 200 quid. I'd have armies of those people, and I'd be open to offers as well. It's. I don't think I'd be a sort of a success. I'd be the sort of journeyman jockey that turns up the races in a £100,000 car. Put it that way, I think that would be my attitude towards it.
Yeah, John, anything you'd do any stroke you'd like to pull as a jockey?
I'd like to think I'd plan quite heavily for my retirement, which would probably be hastened by the stewards. Because I would be an utter cunt. I would definitely find a lot of trouble on fancy days.
Oh yeah, you'd have to, wouldn't you? Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, Governor, I couldn't get off the rails.
It's a golden opportunity for those of elastic morals. Even now, I know the liquidity's not what it was, but you could earn fucking proper money.
Okay, so trainer then. So right. So I'll start us off as a trainer. You just more or less carry on what they do now, wouldn't you? You just start shafting earners.
Yeah. Totally. But you'd have to be. The problem is, it's like it's like sort of the problem is the owner always wants to know, what's going on in the yard, and they want constant updates with horses. So if you want to run a proper punting outfit, you can't rely on people's discretion. So you've got to put all the owners away until the last possible minute if you're that way inclined. That's the only way to do it.
I think it depends how long you want to train for as well, because you couldn't just shaft owners indiscriminately, because it wouldn't take very long and you'd have no owners in the yard. I think I'd probably try and attach myself to a top gambling owner who maybe flies a bit under the radar. I mean, Maurice Camacho, old Malton trainer, was very heavily involved with the best punter I've seen in my lifetime, a gentleman called Harry Roberts.
Yeah.
And he basically did whatever Harry told him to do. If Harry told him he wanted one ready for July, Maurice hardly needed to contact him until July, and then he'd just ring him up and say, well, he's ready when you are, Harry. And he just played again. The only time Maurice Camacho ever went to Portman Square was due to Harry Roberts' horses, funnily enough. Inquiries into how they were run. He actually claimed the bookies out one day at Doncaster that they packed up a race early. It was on the front page of the Spartan Life. It said, Redcar businessman empties the satchels. And that was with a horse called Clewiston at Doncaster. Funnily enough, Chris was talking about hiding identities and things. Yeah. And the horse ran in his daughter's colours. Well, of course, by then wasn't a Robert. She was Mrs. Anne Wilson, because she'd married Kevin Wilson. And nobody knew it was Harry's horse.
Love it.
That's it. I mean, Barney Curley, during the period of time where he did, train for outside owners, the idea was, don't ever call me, don't ask me, I'll tell you when your horse is running, when have a bet, but don't fucking keep ringing me up. And that was the way with Patsy Byrne, who passed away, was also a dog trainer. He said, I didn't know 1 week to the next where the horses were entered, but he said, on the day of the race, he called me up and said, yeah, go and have what you want on. And that's the only way it works, isn't it, properly?
Yeah. I mean,
I'll tell you a quick story about Harry Roberts when we had the betting shops. Myself and my business partner, we had a shop each. We had one in Yellowmask and one in Lingdale. I ran the Yellowmask one and my business partner ran the Lingdale one. And a lad came into my shop in paint and decorating weight. Well, Harry Roberts had a paint shop in Redcar and a paint and decorating business. And this lad looked as though he'd never been in a betting shop before. You know the type. He's looking on the board and everything, looking down. He looked lost. So I said, can I help you, son? He said, I'm looking for my boss's horse. I said, oh, really? I said, what's it called? He said, Twilight Falls. So I had a look on the index and I said it was running a late race at Nottingham. And I said, there it is, son. He said, have you got any early prices? I said, well, and I clocked that it was owned by Cliff Smith, who had the hardware shop in Redcar and was like a partner of Harry Roberts in the punting side of things. So I said, I had 16s in paper. I said, what do you want on? He said, a tenner. He says, it'll win. So I said, well, you can have the 16s, son, that's all right. So he has his 16. I said, you don't need a ticket, mate. I said, just pop back in tomorrow if you've got out to come, So I didn't even write a bet out for him. He went out the door. I just dropped the latch, phoned my business partner at Lingdale. I said, have you found your petrol in car? He said, yeah, where are you? I said, well, get your ass down here. We're off to fucking Nottingham. And we breezed into Nottingham, Colwick Park, arrived there after they'd run about 2 races. And we had everything out the draw, both shops, on this bloody Twilight Falls. It got back down from about an opening price of about 20s into 72 favourite, I think it was. And it won this selling handicap over 6 furlongs by about 6 lengths. With a
fantastic
to its name. Yeah, terrific.
Fantastic.
It ran off 35.
There were so many back then running off like 35 to 45.
You can look it up in the Racing Post. It ran off 35.
Yeah, different time back. Linda Ramsden, obviously, with the she'd get one off 35 and end up winning about 6 on the bounce. And just what a day to be alive. I mean, trainers, yeah, like I said, to me, like Luca Kamani was the best one. The Bedford House to the Raveley Mile, John. How far would that be?
Oh, gosh, you can just 20 minutes.
Honestly, would it be that? How long would it be, really? Bedford House, where Kamani trained, to how long would it be?
Walking out in a car.
Car, a truck, taking horse.
10 minutes.
Yeah, 80 quid. He used to bill owners. It's not bad, that is it? 80 quid, yeah, diesel bill. There you go. That was a good screw. So yeah, there was a few owners used to moan about that. I can tell you for a fact. So yeah, I mean, so as a trainer, right? Okay, judge. So if you were a judge, so in the box, Chris, right? The photo comes up, right? What would you get up to in that box?
Oh, I'd be straight on the laptop and see what. I'd be front running it all. I mean, it is extraordinary though. Sometimes you see it. I don't know how much you see it now, but you can see the market move about 30 to 40 seconds before they've called the result of a type photograph. And I always wonder whether there are leaks, etc. I'm not sure, but it does seem very odd, doesn't it?
I think someone's got some kind of software or like freeze frame software. So basically, how everyone has to wait for the racing TV replay slow mo. Yeah. I reckon someone's doing their own slow mos, as in, So as soon as it crosses the line, they might have got it in the background doing the slow mo for every single finish. Yeah. And then they make the judgment call. I don't think it's anything bent going out the judge's box, or it could be. I mean, it could simply be the race tech guy in the van. Yeah.
You'd be certainly asking for a print every race, wouldn't you, if you're a judge?
It spoilt the photo finish markets now as a rule because what's happening is that you'll know, Chris, yourself, that it's like 1:0. Even tight ones tend to be like 1:03. When in the past it'd be like 2s on 2 to 1 because everyone's waiting for the racing TV. Everyone's sat there going, "Come on, play the bloody," and all of a sudden that's changed now. Someone's clearly either got access to it or they've got their own software that is obviously racing, and it wouldn't be hard to do. So you record it racing TV and then slow mo it down like real time, and then it freezes it right on the line for you. And and then you get your own print sort of thing, so your own before the racing TV play it, which is a big edge if you think about it. Someone that's clever enough to do that, well done. But me as judge, I'd be one of those that I'd be delaying it like 10 minutes, It'd be like, oh, it's tight this, and someone comes in, you got the result? No, it's tight. Make sure there's a bit of 1.4.
Same with Steward's inquiries as well. I'd be slinging out fucking awful ones. No, by the way, they get slung out, fucking slinging out. Yeah, honestly.
John, you as a steward, you'd love the old, what one that's got beats there. I don't know, half a length or something, and you're thinking, and there's not much in it, but I'm sure you make plenty in it.
Well, I'd quite like the ones that's got about 3 or 4 lengths, and if the winners just brushed past them, and be having the jockey in, so what the hell you were doing? You could have killed that lad. You're getting 14 days, and you're getting stood down.
Yeah.
I mean that's the thing. That's the thing, right?
There's no losers with that because the people you chuck out get the race back on a pail anyway. Yeah. So you're not stuffing them. The jockey would get his ban overturned on a pail. You're not stuffing him. And stewards never ever get sacked for shit decisions. So you're not.
Yeah, go forever. Yeah, everybody wins.
It's true, that, isn't it? Yeah, it's like you said, they carry on regardless, even though they're getting lots of things wrong. Yeah, brilliant. So Betfair account watcher. I mean, those guys. Why aren't them guys millionaires?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, maybe they are. They go to work simply to maintain their lifestyle. I mean,
They're not going to tell you that.
I mean, if you like, all I'm trying to say, I mean, obviously, I know it was better back in the glory days because I actually know some former, really good Betfair guys, that were there in the premium times, and some of the things I'll get told, some I can't repeat on air. But yeah, it must be a gold mine to a degree. But they did say, a few I've talked to about it, they did say it was kind of spoiled it, because if some like marked account they knew, say if they they always backed Haggis. The account always backed Haggis on Betfair, and it was mustard, either laying them or backing them, absolutely mustard. They'd pick up on it, and the problem with when they picked up on it, it'd be like 6s into 9-4. They were so fast at knocking it down, and that was the one problem with that. But Chris, I mean, if there's one job I think you could have done, or wish you could have, you might have done. I don't know. You might have been a form. I don't know.
I actually passed the interview and was offered the position of what was it obviously changed it now. Obviously that's BHA, the Jockey Club security officer. But the job offer was rescinded upon references from from bookmakers, because I said, oh no, I would never have a bet. Oh no, I'd never profit from inside information. Oh yeah, definitely not me, governor. I'm straight as a die. So it came back and sort of, fuck this cunt. we don't want to employ him. So yeah, I passed. That was in the days of Paul Scottney, if you remember, who succeeded Jeremy Phipps. Yeah, shook hands, welcome aboard, and 3 weeks later was, "No, you're all right. We don't want your type here." Bollocks. I'd have them all in my pocket. Honestly, I'd have Graham Bradley pleading for mercy. I can't stop anymore. They're on to me. Stop every fucking thing.
Chris, like me, you've always been cantering on the bridle, coming to the last, and then you smash through it and get beat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Oh, Christ, it'd be unbelievable, because of course, I mean, I don't know what, obviously the role doesn't exist anymore, but the information those guys had would, make your eyes itch. But they're all old coppers, not interested in having a bet, more interested in sort of, can we get to the tea bar first while the tea's still hot? But, they were, I mean, I had a few days in another life. I had a few days out with them, and the stuff they were getting told was unreal. But what they didn't have, and I think, just sort of alluding to the point you made about, Betfair account watchers, is, as Icy says, having the information and knowing what to do with it are two quite different things. Because you see, what you have is, it's all very well having the info, but if you're a shit gambler, you're not going to profit from it. And so you need to understand the relative strength of the information, which trainers, jockeys are good judges, what's a big bet for a particular owner or a connection. But if you don't have that context, it's quite possible to be really clued up and do your money. And as you said, Lee, before, we know lots of very, very astute form judges who are terrible gamblers. They can tell you the inside of the form, back to front, everything, but they can't turn that into information. So, and that was the same with the Jockey Club security officers, and they deliberately recruited, solid dudes who knew the law, but ultimately weren't going to be sharp enough to turn that into gold. And that was a course of lasting regret in my life that I didn't get that job, because I'd either be in jail or very rich.
No, you would be in jail. They've never prosecuted anyone.
I'd be the unluckiest part of fuck me in the first place. I'm going to make an example.
You'd be the test case. Yeah.
I'll squeal like a pig, though. Honestly, I'll give them all up. But yeah, fascinating job, which probably doesn't exist anymore. I'm sure it's all office space now. But
it'd be Paddy Power himself watching all the dark accounts. and
I
use
mean,
information.
it's gold. I mean, look, as Icy said, I mean, obviously the times have changed, etc. But look, if you're getting access to JP's bets, right, and what is a fantastically large bet for JP, or what is just a lazy 50 grand, you could sort of, it'd be worth you just going to work for like whatever 20 grand a year, 9 to 5, because that's solid gold, isn't it? That's unbelievable information. But again, you'd have to know what to do with it to make it worthwhile.
You do, yeah. You can still trip up even with the right info.
Oh, totally, yeah, totally. They'll throw in a dud one as well, just to get people off the scent. But I think if you had access to that kind of information on an ongoing basis, and you were sensible and prudent, you could not fail to make a fantastic living out of it for as long as it lasted.
No, going on, just finish off. Going on to owners, I used to know an owner. Well, I still know him, and he made fortunes out of the game in the early 2000s when it was like good, and basically lined his horses up to place, not to win. And so when it was D-Day, he'd run them down the field, and then on D-Day it'd always be like above 12 to 1 in the win. Because it got crap form, and he just lined the horse up to place, and he say to the jockey, if you do win, you win, but you must ride to place.
Yeah.
And he'd hammer the place markets on Betfair, and I can tell you now, in the glory days, back into like 2005ish, that kind of era, he'd make 100,000 out of the places.
Well, I've often looked at those place markets, and when you're on a run, as I inevitably usually am, at sort of endless seconds and thirds, and you look back and you think, I wonder what it'd be like if I had sort of 2/3 of a stake on place only, and then the remaining third on win. Because that to me is it's not a daft thing. I don't know whether you can still do it, but I can well believe your man made 100 grand doing that. I can well believe it.
Well, they were taking short odds. I mean, so it'd be 12 to 1 in win, and they'd be like hammering it at like 2 to 1, 7 to 4, and getting like 20 or 30 grand on. Yeah. Maybe more.
Yeah. I mean, but again, if in the long run, you're going to make plenty dough out of that, aren't you? But you have to have the stake. I'll tell you a very quick story, just deviate slightly. Dog racing. People say, always makes me laugh on Twitter when people assume how easy it is to land a gamble, and all you need to do is buy a horse, run it down the bank a few times, and it's easy peasy. Well, many years ago, I used to own quite a few dogs, and I had a particular dog which we'll all know. I bought when it was in Ireland. It was the fastest thing you've ever seen in your life. It's only had one hand slip, and it smashed the clock at Newbridge or whatever. But when it makes that journey to England, it's a fucking A8 grader, right? So straight away, you buy these dogs in Ireland for big money, and when they come across to England, guess what? They're not nearly as fast as our Irish friends have told. So anyway, long story short, I used to know a guy that was a bookmaker, mainly point to point, and he used to do sort of meetings at Flagmore and all that, and he used to own a load of snooker halls in the West Midlands. He was quite a rum character, trained a few greyhounds, utterly without scruple, and the most dishonest person you'll ever meet. Really nice guy, but everything was an angle, right? The whole dog operation was to Lancoos, and he trained at possibly the most bent track in the UK at the time, Cradley Heath, right? I mean, it was full of villains. I mean, every race you didn't know what the fuck was going on, and he was sort of at the apex of the dishonest pyramid, right? So we sent this dog to him, and I said, look, what do you want? I said, I want to have a touch. He says, right. He said, okay, no problems. He said, look, bad news is Cradley Heath is shutting in sort of like 4 or 5 months' time. They're going to build a fucking Sainsbury's on it. We've got 4 months to get this, down into the first race. And the first race was effectively, I think, only went down to A5. Most tracks were A10. And these were like effectively anything in A5 was a family pet, was laying on the sofa being fed fucking Doritos. So the A5 dogs were awful. So anyway, this dog, we trialled it round Ray Wilkes' gaff, and it finished half a length behind an open race dog. If you can imagine an open race dog in a bottom grade at a shitty track, you're gonna lap them. So anyway, we start off down the bank, this dog running, it's sort of graded at A3, and he's got it down, and the dog's tailed off. I mean, it can't fucking lift a leg. I mean, God knows how he managed that. But put it this way, he was a regular customer of Boots the chemist, put it that way. So anyway, so here we go. Last thing, final meeting. It's in the first race. It's drawn trap 1. So what do you think? Sporting Life at the time, 9-2. He said they will need to cut across the middle to beat this. He said, you know, it doesn't matter. Last meeting, they're red light you. It'll win fucking 50. It's a certainty. So this is great. So anyway, we go around the betting shops, and the usual story, 20 quid here, 20 quid there. Third betting shop, no more bets. First race, Cradley Heath, refer to manager. So eventually we got 60 quid on, and it's like big red light. No. Anyway. So I said to the kid that I owned it with, right, we'll drive up there. Brilliant. There'll be about $1 million up there. We'll get on, no bother. So anyway, halfway through the afternoon, we had a call from the racing manager. And he says, I'm pulling your dog out because of unusual betting patterns that have been reported to us by Bowler. So I said, well, you can't pull the dog out. He said, I can do what the fuck I like. He said, your trainer's a criminal. He said, you're all fucking Cockney spibs. He said, I'm not having this lovely last day fucked up by you Cockney wankers. He said, it's definitely crooked, no good. So I said, well, I don't understand, Bowler. I said, I've had 60 quid on it, and it's the truth. I had £60 on. I said, how can that be an unusual bet pattern? Fuck that. So you're not running. So anyway, so we went up there, and I said to the guy, the trainer, a week later, I said, well, what the fuck's going on there? I said, well, you know, who did you tell? He said, well, I didn't have a bet. I was waiting to go up there. Then he said, but maybe I've worked out the reason. I said, well, what is that then? He said, well, I did tell the other 4 trainers to knock theirs over just to make sure. So when the race was actually run, the time was like fucking 2 seconds outside what you'd expect, because all these dogs were like fucking running all round the wrong, all off their nuts, whatever. And of course, one of the trainers told some people in Ireland, and I spoke to some at Bowler and said, oh yeah, there was like 100 grand for it in Ireland all around these things. And you know, so my long-winded story is, you know, the best laid plans of mice and men, do all the things right, and one silly decision, which was to tell other trainers to knock their dogs over, which was stupid because he didn't need to, blew it all up. And you know, so when people say, this is an easy old game, this, and it was actually the headline of the Greyhound section of Sporting Life, and it was Griffiths Foils Ring Road Treasure Seekers. That because the dog was called Ring Road Treasure. Yeah, and there it is. And it went to Gerald Lilly at Hall Green afterwards, and we had 4 bets on it. It got beat 4 times. He stopped it 4 times, and it won 4 times. And then at the end of it, he said, I think this dog thrives when it's being fed. That was 8 bets in. That was the end of that. Yeah. I think, well, I'll give it a couple of bowls of rub. He seems to run faster. No shit. So it's a difficult job, and you know, full respect to anyone who managed to pull it off, because most don't.
It is. What a game, and what a story. I mean, it just shows you how hard it is, no matter what you've got in hand.
Yeah.
You know, so fair play to people that do manage to have it off.
Yeah.
Right. So, John, to finish the show, I've had a question from Jean Warwick. One trainer who's had we like to slag trainers off. So, what one trainer this season who's had a disappointing year?
Tim Easterby's had a very disappointing year, actually. He's had a lot of winners.
Yeah.
But I think his horses have been really in and out, and
lackluster.
His percentage has been terrible.
It's lackluster, isn't it? It's like he's done it right, but nothing.
I mean, his big sprinters never looked like performing, and he was very upbeat at the start of the season about that from the Winter Power one. I think Tim's had a shit season.
I would give my vote to Carlton Palmer, Michael Owens.
Marijuana.
Yeah, I think that's a very disappointing year to come in there and get a lesser strike rate than Tom Dascombe, which that takes some doing, and he's managed it. And people say, somebody on Twitter slagged me off and said, it's his first year, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know, rubbish. You know, the man had more ammo than Tom Dascombe had. He brought more horses.
More than ammo.
Yeah, the ammo of ammo. And he managed lesser strike rate than Tom Dascombe and tailed off towards the end of the season. So Carlton Palmer for me at Michael Owen's yard, they might end that. I could see that association ended. I just, there's something weird about it.
I couldn't see him gelling really at the start. You know, I mean, he's.
I mean, Hugo probably doesn't need the money, does he? You know, so you think he'd want to just continue to train in Newmarket. I mean, he's a wealthy guy, and I did wonder what's in it for him to be effectively his private trainer. I mean, couldn't see the advantages in it, and they certainly haven't had any sort of superstar horses any horse that even looked like being a superstar that would tempt him across there. So I don't really know.
No, it's an odd one. Anyway, to finish the show, did we do some kind of cunt of the year last year?
I think we touched on the idea.
Yeah.
I don't think we actually had an award.
We did.
And voted for someone. Who was it?
Cunt of the year. You know?
Yeah. Well, if we did, this would be the second one. So anyway, cunt of the year. We've got a few nominations coming forward, but one that makes the list is that speedball, Simon Rowlands. Changes his cadence and stride speed towards a Chinese buffet. Does Fat Rowlands, and so he makes the list. A disgraceful character, blocking the Barsters this week. Asked him on the show nicely, and then all of a sudden he had the temerity to say through a thin.
You'd have to pay him to listen to a podcast. He said so.
Yeah, and Fat Rowlands, yes, he would get it, and I mean he's definitely a short price. He would probably be odds on at this stage. There'll be more nominations to come on future sermons.
Send your nominations in, folks.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, listeners are important.
Yeah.
Listeners, rather than us, we're nominating ourselves. That's our nomination for cunt of the year.
The phrase goes something like this: the bigger the cunt, the better we like it.
Absolutely.
That could also be said for the current worrying situation where a certain person's phone records seem to have fallen into the wrong hands, and I'm worried.
Yes, they do. Yes, of course.
I'm worried that Mr. Putin now knows what I've been suggesting to our former Prime Minister.
I'm going to say you've been texting Truss. I'm certain of it. I know you. I know you. Late nights, the slipping into the DMs. You know. It happens. It happens. We all
I could get nominated for a cunt of the year, and that's on that alone.
Yeah. So anyway, what do you think, listeners? Nominations in, please, for the cunt of the year, which will be announced on the Christmas edition of the Barsters show. That's the Boxing Day preview. We'll announce the cunt of 2022. Okay, that's all from us today. But just to clarify things going forward, Wednesday evening, you're going to see the 5 jumpers to follow with me, John, Catherine Fry, Thongless, the Irish Lion. Declan Carroll is joining us as well. So that'll be a corker of a show on Wednesday. Not this week, but next week on Tuesday, we'll have the David Menuisier special that we've been promising for a while. That's going to come a week on Tuesday, and then we've Breeders' Cup preview on Friday. That's me, John, Jack, Andy Richmond, and Davis. Yeah, Nick Davis is back for his assault on the Naps table.
He's spending all week on clock.
Yeah, we're 5-handed for the Friday show, so don't miss the extended Breeders' Cup preview edition with the curtain.
No jumps tips.
With the curtain falling down on the flat season. Hope you enjoyed it today. Me, John and Chris did. Bye for now.